Hello and welcome back to our tutorial series on how to edit videos with Edius 7. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at how you can organize your workspace so that you can set it up to your own personal preferences, as well as make it optimal for different editing tasks that you might be doing. Let's fire up the program. And we see that the program that we started in our previous tutorials is showing up there as being highlighted in blue, and that means that it is being selected. We could just either double click on that item or choose to hit the open button, and that opens up our program. Now, in an ideal world, you'll be working on a computer system that has two screens attached to the computer to allow you to have optimal space, lots of real estate, to be able to accommodate the various windows that are available to you when you're working with Edius. However, we want to show you how it is possible to actually edit videos, even if you only have a one-screen system, and it actually accommodates the recording of these tutorials a lot better, makes it a lot easier to record the tutorials if we're only attempting to record one screen at a time. And so that is how we are going to record all of our tutorials, is just using the one screen. Now, by default, there are basically 4 windows that appear on our one-screen system when you first start the program. These are the most important windows that you will work with when editing projects. However, you should know that there are a variety of other windows that you can open and close that will allow you to do specific tasks. But the 4 windows that come by default are, first of all, what we call a preview window. This is where we preview all of our clips and also preview what the final edit is going to be like. And so that's why we call it the preview window. The second big window that we'll be working with is called the timeline window. And you'll notice that as we jump from window to window, that you'll see a green outline that surrounds the window that is currently selected or currently has the focus of our attention. And this way you will have a quick visual clue as to what window is currently selected, what window is currently in focus, what window is currently active, we might say. And that is important because sometimes the keyboard shortcuts that we use are specifically designed to function within a particular window. And one keyboard shortcut might work in one window one way, and if you have another window, say the timeline window selected, that same keyboard shortcut might work in a different way. So that's good to keep in mind. Now, you'll notice as you begin to play around with these windows that if you select the area in between any two given windows, that as you make one window larger, it will automatically make the other windows change or become smaller. We could also do it this way. And this allows you to open up working space for any given task. Let's say that you are wanting to work with your bin window and organize your clips. Well, you'd want to have this window a lot larger. In fact, maybe to show this a little better, let's bring in some media. And you can do that by clicking on this little icon here and going to the hard drive that has some media on it. And let's just grab a few clips here and bring them into our bin. In another tutorial, we'll have a more detailed explanation of how to bring in media and work with media, how to organize media. But it'll be helpful for this tutorial just to have a few clips in to be able to demonstrate some of the functions and features of any of these main windows that we're working with in this tutorial. All right, so we've brought in some media. They're now showing up in our bin window. So as we were saying, if we wanted to organize these clips, we might want to spread this out so that our window is showing a lot of clips at once. And then as we take a look at clips and organize our clips, Just by double clicking, we can have them show up over here in our play monitor, or you could drag and drop a clip into your play monitor to have it show up. Well, as we are doing that, we don't need to see our play monitor that big. We don't need to worry about having a lot of space down here in our timeline window. So while we're organizing our clips, we can have this window very large. In fact, we wouldn't have to have this information palette open either. We could actually just close that and make our bin that much bigger. Now you'll notice that when we're trying to extend this down, it only reaches a certain point before it doesn't go any further. And that's because this bin window is currently docked or attached to these other two windows. And because it wants to maintain the timeline window here, it's not going to go down any further. Well, we can get around that by detaching our bin window from the other two windows. And we can do that by just taking our mouse up to the very top part of any given window. And now when we click down on it and move it, you'll see that it separates from the other windows. And as long as it's separated, we can now drag that bin window down so that it's showing up in more space. And then we can drag this over so that we're docking all three windows together again. And now as we move one window, the others will move as well. And now in this tutorial, we don't want to get too heavily involved in showing you how to organize your bin window, but just so you get an idea, you can make new folders here by just right-clicking on your root folder. And let's make a folder here, Temple Shots. And then we can click back to our root folder and go through and look for all of those shots that might be related to Buddhist temples. And we see we have quite a few here. We spent a couple of hours at one of the big pagodas in Rangoon. So we can select all of those and just simply drag and drop those into our temple shots. And now as we click on temple shots, we see that all of our temple shots are now in that folder. And so you can see as you're working with your bin window, you can have that very large. And once you've got a working space that you are happy with for any given task that you might be doing, like organizing your clips, well, you can save that as a user preference or a user preset. And you can do that under your menu options here. Go up to the top and choose View and go down to Window Layout and select Save Current Layout and select New. And now we could call this organizing clips, or let's say the bin window. And now as we go back and look and check, we see that we have a user preset that at any time we want to, we can just simply click on this and we'll get our organized space quickly back to this format. But then there might be other times when we don't want our bin window to be so big. Let's detach our window again and make that smaller. And to get our information palette back again, we can go down to this icon here shows Toggle Palette Display. And here we can see our information palette is currently unchecked. Well, if we click on that, we'll see that we get our information palette back. And if we want to dock it, we can bring it into place. And I believe it now. You can tell when something is docked, it kind of clicks together. It snaps together. And now we should be able to rearrange all of our windows simply by grabbing the space in between. All right, but let's say we want to maximize our timeline window and be able to, when you're working with just the one screen, there's oftentimes you want to maximize the area of one particular window in order to facilitate the optimal use for any particular task that you might be doing. We've just seen how you can make your bin window optimal for being able to organize your clips into proper folders. Well, let's say now we're ready to edit, and we want to have our timeline window to be the main big window to work with. Well, once again, we might want to get rid of our information palette. Or if we know that we're going to want to use our information palette, what we could do is simply bring this palette and place it inside our bin window. The bin window is actually also a palette window. We could call it that. And how you can do that is just go down to the tab of any given window and bring it up and drop it in the other palette window, or the bin window. And now our information palette is stored together with our bin window, which, as we look at it, we see there's actually a lot of other windows or palettes already inside our bin window. And we can toggle back and forth between any one of these palettes inside our bin window. But by doing this, we have now created a situation where we can maximize our timeline window. We just remember we have to, first of all, detach it from the others in order to be able to expand it out separately. And then let's snap it back into place. And now we have a workspace environment that is optimal for editing. We might want to open up our bin window so that we can see more clips as we're working on our edit. And you can just set this to your own personal preference as to how many clips you want to see at any given time. We'll do another whole tutorial on the bin window itself, so we'll show you how you can make the clips smaller to be able to see more at once. But for now, just know that you can set these windows up to suit your own personal needs for any specific task to make it optimal for that task. Just as we've shown you how you can bring palettes together to optimize your space, you may want to set up a working environment where you have any one of these given palettes in its own separate window. Let's say, for example, that you want to have the effects palette in its own separate window. When you're working on polishing up your video and you're adding all sorts of effects, doing color correction and that type of thing, working with your audio, you might want to be able to set up an environment where your effects are in its own separate window. We probably wouldn't want to get rid of all of these other palettes, but just by pointing down to that tab and dragging it outside of that palette, we'll see that it creates its own separate window. And now it would just be a matter of making room for that palette in its own separate space. So now we can set it up so that we have our bin window so that we can easily see and work with all of our source media. But at the same time, we can also quickly apply any effects to our clips. And remember that once you have the windows set the way that you like them, that you can always save that working space as a personal preset. And these will be applied to your personal profile. So every time you start a new project with your own personal profile, you'll have all of these settings, all of these user presets easily accessible, ready to go. So let's save this current layout as, let's call it editing. So now as we are working along, let's say we quickly want to go back to work and organize our clips. We can go to our window layout, apply layout, choose our bin window, and we've got our bin window layout ready to go. But then we want to start editing our clips. We can go back to our Windows layout and apply our editing layout that we designed. All right, just a couple more things we'll maybe point out. Maybe let's go back to our preview window. The way Edius 7 has presented this layout, for at least for the one screen, if you have a two-screen setup, Edius will sense that, And when it starts the program, most of these palette windows will probably, you'll have noticed, probably been on your second screen. And I'm guessing that your timeline window will extend out the full width of your first screen, screen number 1, and that your preview window will show 2 monitors instead of just the one that is displayed by default on a 1-screen setup. So if you're working with a 2-screen setup, your preview window is probably looking more like this, where it has not only a play monitor showing, but also what's called a record monitor. And if we were to drag this clip down to our timeline and place our timeline cursor inside of that, we would see that it then shows up in the record preview monitor. Let's maybe go down to our temple shots and bring in another clip. Now, there are several ways that you can take a clip from your bin window and work with it. One would be to point to the clip and with your left mouse button point down to it and drag it all the way over to your play window and drop it in, and it will show up in your play monitor. And then you can play it and find a place where you might want to select or point as being the beginning of the clip that you want to use. Find an out point and select that, and then drag that down to our timeline. And then as our clip moves from the first one over to our second one, we see that it jumps to our second clip. However, we're not restricted to this drag and drop motion. We can also double click on any clip in our bin, and you'll see that it shows up in our play monitor. We can select our in and outs, and then we can drag that down to our timeline. And we'll see that, once again, as our timeline cursor moves over to that new clip, and you can play the timeline just by hitting the space bar, that it goes to the new clip on our timeline. Okay, however, there is another more direct way that you can edit, and we'll talk more about this in another tutorial, is that you can drag and drop your clip right from the bin window right down to your timeline. And then make any edits right there on your timeline. Okay, and so that shows you, that demonstrates how even on a 1-monitor setup, you can have not only a play monitor to preview your clips from your bin window, but also have a record monitor to show you how things are looking right from your timeline. However, when you are working on a 1-screen system, you may find it your personal preference when you're just working with 1 screen to have only 1 monitor showing up here in your preview monitor, and that will give you more real estate for your bin window. So let's go back and change this. It's under the View menu option, and we'll select it. Right now it's set to the dual mode. Let's change that to the single mode. And now we're returned to just the 1 window. And if you look up here, it will show you what monitor you're actually looking at, whether it's the record monitor that shows the timeline, or if it's showing the play preview window. And you can switch between the two by just clicking on them. So you're now looking at the play window and then looking at the record window. Or you'll notice that if you are set in the record window and you drag a new clip or double click on a clip to bring it in, that Edius will automatically switch to the play preview window and show you the clip that is coming in from your bin, either through a drag and drop method or by double clicking on the clip. Set your in and outs and bring it down. And you'll see that as soon as I drop that on the timeline and the timeline window became the focus of our attention, and you can confirm that by the green border that surrounds the timeline window, that our preview window switched from the play monitor to the record monitor. And if you want to see that again, let's just do that one more time. It kind of happens so fast. Let's bring in another clip. By double clicking on it, you'll see that it's just switched from the record view, or the timeline view, might be better to refer to it that way. Less confusing if we call it the timeline monitor. It's switched to the play preview monitor. And you'll notice, if you look carefully, you'll see that our green border tells us that we are now focused on the preview monitor. But once we select our in and out points, if we can find a good in and out point in this one, doesn't look like there is. Let's click on another one here. Maybe we can find a good section here of this video, and then drag and drop that down to our timeline. Notice what happens when we drop this onto our timeline. Not only does our focus switch from our preview monitor to our timeline window, but also it has switched from our preview monitor to our record monitor, or as we have suggested, it might be easier to understand as our timeline monitor. And this is really just personal preference as to whether or not you work with just one monitor or two. You can try both methods and see which one works for you. You know, if it's easier for you to understand and work with two monitors here, just go back and change it to the dual mode, and that way it's very easy to tell whether you're previewing a clip or you're actually looking at the clip on the timeline. So, try it out both ways. Maybe once you've got it set like this, you might want to save a preset, save current layout, and say dual monitors. But also set one up so that it's a single mode, and that way you can maybe open up your bin window a little bit more and show more clips to choose from, and then save that window layout as a single monitor. All right, I think that should give you a good idea of how you can arrange and customize these 4 main windows when you're working with Edius, and be able to set up an environment that is most comfortable for you for any given tasks that you might be working on. And so for now, that's it for organizing your workspace in Edius 7.